Well, welcome. For those of you just signing on, you should have on your screen Discover Antarctica, our seventh continent. We're waiting on a few more people to join us, so give us another minute. And while we're waiting, you'll see, congratulations for those who found their way onto this webinar. We thought this was going to be a great way to present the information without being stuck in traffic and in your jammies at home with a cocktail. So welcome. Okay, just a few more seconds. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Thank you for being timely. Again, welcome. This is Cindy Chambers with Beyond Group Travel. And I want to welcome you to this seminar and to this format, again, at home, in the comfort of your home. We appreciate you tuning in. If you have questions throughout this programming, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner a little orange, it might be red on your device with an arrow. If you click on that, you'll see a whole window opens up and you can actually type the question. And then what we'll be doing is taking those questions at the end and answering them for you. Of course, if you have a question after the broadcast, you can certainly email me, and you'll see my email at the bottom along with our website and our phone number. So again, welcome. I'm Cindy Chambers. With me on the call this evening is Betsy Burks, my area sales director with Silversea. She's been in the business and my rep for over 17 years, so we're thrilled to have her, along with Rachel Woodward, who manages everything to do with expedition. So we're looking forward to hearing from her, and that's really why you tuned in. But Betsy has graciously introduced to Beyond Group Travel the world of expedition, and we've been working with them on expeditions for the last, 5 or 6 years. And I've been getting continuous requests, Cindy, when are you going to do Antarctica? When are you going to do Antarctica? And so here we are, doing Antarctica. So I'm very excited you're here. Now we want to be respectful of your time. So we're going to just spend about 30 minutes. Again, hope you're relaxing at home with a cocktail. So let me turn it over to our expedition expert, Rachel Woodward. Rachel, good evening.
Good evening. Well, thank you, Cindy, and I appreciate everyone attending tonight. It's always great to work with Cindy, who's so passionate about travel and expedition. And one thing with expedition travel, this market is really booming. So I'll talk about that tonight. There's so much interest visiting Antarctica. But a little bit about Silversea. Silversea started in 1994, and this year marks our 25th anniversary. So one unique thing, we combine luxury with adventure. But we visit over 900 worldwide destinations. We currently have 9 ships in our fleet. 4 of them are expedition. And in 2020, we have a brand new Galapagos ship, and then we have another classic vessel that will primarily be in Europe. But just taking a look here at the map, you can see everywhere we go, from Antarctica, west coast of Africa, Arctic, Iceland, Greenland. The only destination we're year-round is the Galapagos. A lot of focus too on the South Pacific, Papua New Guinea, Easter Island, the Kimberleys in Australia, Russian Far East. So there's a destination, I always say, out there for everyone. A great way to travel because our vessels are very comfortable, but also the capacity size allows us to visit really remote destinations. So a lot of times too, when looking at expedition cruising, some vessels might be 500 passengers, but with Silversea, we never go above 240 passengers in our polar region. So our smallest vessel, the Galapagos, is 100 passengers, and then the Explorer, Cloud, and Wind range from about 144 to 240 passengers. But the unique thing with this is it's almost a 1-to-1 crew to guest ratio. So that really does make a difference. The service on board is great, as well as the expedition team, which I'll talk in a minute, how great they lead these trips to shore, always small groups. So our all-inclusive product on board, we do offer complimentary Wi-Fi, dining is included, all all your beverages, all cocktails. There's a mini bar in your suite, so any special beverages that you have, that's available. And then butler service for every suite. So a lot of times it might just be the larger suites on some other cruise lines that offer that service, but we include that even for our entry-level suites. And then on the expedition side, we have a highly qualified expedition team that lead all the excursions. So with expedition, everything is included, all excursions. And you do not need to sign up for any excursions. Those are all planned by the expedition team. On our polar trips, we do include an expedition parka, and that will be in your suite for you. But what I really think stands out with Silversea Expeditions is our team that we have on board. Silversea launched our expedition division in 2008. So just imagine that a lot of the guides that we have been with Silversea for over 11 years. An example, Robin Ayala, she's on the left-hand side photo here, a marine biologist, graduated from Harvard University. She's hosted over 80 trips to Antarctica. She has actually dived in Antarctica. So a lot of these guides have been to these places quite often, very familiar with that. We'll always have on board general naturalists, marine biologists, historians, ornithologists, geologists, and they lead all trips ashore from hiking, walking, zodiac cruising, kayaking, and then throughout the day lectures. But I'll talk briefly and a little bit more about the team that we have on board. Zodiac exploration, though, this is really the key to expedition cruising. It's not so much of being on a ship. You really want to be immersed in the destination by going ashore. So we have these inflatable zodiacs, and there's an expedition guide on there, and these zodiacs can accommodate about 14 to 16 guests. But you can see in this photo here, we usually have about 8 to 10 guests, so there's plenty of opportunities to move from side to side on a zodiac when you're taking photos. But with 20 zodiacs, you can see here too, we have 28 guides. So every morning and every afternoon, you're with a different guide, which really does make a difference. Briefly, I do want to talk about the Silver Wind. Cindy's group to Antarctica in 21 will be on the Silver Wind. That 240 guests and 200 crew, almost a 1-to-1 crew to guest ratio. So we have the highest ratio in the industry. I would say too, with the ship itself, plenty of public areas, which is really important visiting a destination like Antarctica, because if you think about it, your landings that you have each day, you're ashore in the morning for about an hour and a half, and then in the afternoon, you're ashore for another hour and a half. So if you think about it, you're really on board an expedition ship in Antarctica for about, I would say, 19, 20 hours during the day. You want to be on a comfortable vessel. So there's a lot of public spaces here and a lot of deck space so that you can take photographs. One of our lecture areas here is theater seating, but the expedition team, they're very interactive throughout the day. So they might give lectures on for penguins, maybe on the humpback whales, penguins, the best time of season to see the baby penguins. They might talk about glaciers and icebergs, but that is available throughout the day, complimentary lectures. We do have a gym on board, and of course, when we talk about some of the restaurant choices and bars, we have a couple bars available. So for our dining choices, 5 dining choices, it's open seating dining in our main restaurant. We also have an Italian restaurant, which is my weakness traveling on Silversea, La Terrazza. And then we have a French restaurant, and of course, room service is available 24/7. One of the questions, though, I do get with expedition cruising is, how formal is it? I would say throughout the day, a lot of guests will just wear a pair of jeans, Patagonia, nano puff, so that they can go outside. They're taking photographs. And then in the evening, I would say it's like country club casual. All we ask is that guests do not wear jeans in the evening. The suites, some of the most, I would say, comfortable and luxurious suites for an expedition ship. They start at about 240 square feet. Our veranda suites are about 300 square feet. And then we have some larger suites that range anywhere from about 500 to 1,300 square feet. But the nice thing with our suites, even for our entry-level category, You have a walk-in closet, and then you can separate the living room from the bedroom. There's 9 different pillow options to choose from. There is a mini bar in there, so any special beverage requests that you would like. I do recommend, though, for Antarctica, I really enjoyed when I visited there about a year and a half, having a veranda, because a lot of times the expedition leader or captain will make an announcement maybe at 6, 7 in the morning. They might have spotted a pod of humpback whales, and you can go out on your veranda and just take photos from there, so you don't have to go out on deck. So it is nice having that veranda. But I really want to jump into Antarctica and what makes it so special. As I mentioned, I visited Antarctica about a year and a half ago. 3 months ago, I visited the Arctic. So I've been from pole to pole in the past year and a half. But with Antarctica, it's a frozen continent surrounded by oceans. And I do get a lot of questions of why Antarctica? What makes Antarctica so special? Antarctica is an environment of beautiful isolation. So it combines wildlife and history and landscape. I like to think of it like a total sensory overload. You're going to see these rocky cliff sides, which are great for hiking, pebbled beaches, floating ice sculptures when you're going through the Lemaire Channel. It's likely the farthest away from home that you'll ever be. So the other nice thing is you can check off your 7th continent. The wildlife that you're going to see, from penguins, seals, and whales. And it's like anywhere else in the planet. It's just ice and rock. You're not going to see any trees, no plants. So it is one of those places, even just this photograph here, you can just see how pristine. The air is so pure. It's just stunning scenery. I put together some of my top reasons to visit Antarctica. The first is the wildlife, particularly the penguins. They have no fear of humans at all. So when you're on these zodiacs and you go ashore, as soon as you step foot ashore, not only are you going to see maybe 10 to 20 penguins, you're going to see hundreds, if not thousands of penguins ashore. You're within a couple feet of the penguins. If you sit down, a lot of times the penguins will come up to you. The other thing is the adventure side. Traveling to Antarctica means you're going to go kayaking, hiking, and you're exploring one of the most untouched destinations in the planet. And then with the most remote destination, there's no civilization there. So with that, when you travel to this region, it's just you and your shipmates on board. You might meet some scientists ashore, but for the most part, it's just you and the team on board going ashore each day. The other thing, pardon me, I'll go back here. The human footprint is barely visible. So because Antarctica is so far away, and it does have extreme weather, we visit there during their prime summer season, which is mid-November through end of February. So with that, few people have ever visited the continent. So when you do visit here, I like to say you're a part of history. And just to give you an example of how many people visit a year, last year, 50,000 people visited Antarctica. 38 ships will visit Antarctica. Next season, it's up about from 6 ships from the season prior. So there's more and more interest visiting Antarctica, but I say if you do have interest visiting, you should do this over the next couple years. It's perfect. Cindy's group in January is a great time to go because of the seasons with the penguins. January tends to be the best time, the most popular time to visit Antarctica. The other thing is icebergs. And if you've ever seen icebergs before, it's completely different in Antarctica. I was blown away by the colors of the icebergs, which I'll show in a bit, a couple photos. But even this photo here, you can just see the turquoise colors here. These floating structures come in all shapes and sizes, and no two are alike. The other thing is photography. So if you are an avid photographer, I really recommend this. The Silver Wind does have a photo studio on board. So we do have a couple of photographers and a videographer. If you just want to put your camera and phone equipment away, you can do that, because at the end of the voyage, we'll provide you with a photographer's top 25 best photos and then a short video of your trip. And lastly, the expedition team. I briefly mentioned the number of guides we have, but really our expedition team, they have a passion for the outdoors and adventure. You can just see it. One of my favorite photos here is the top right-hand side. The captain is out with our expedition leader, and they're spotting an orca. So this is the great thing with Silversea expeditions. The number of guides we have is almost one guide to every 10 to 12 guests. Other expedition ships, it might be one guide to 14 to 16 guests. So it really makes a difference, even just throughout the ship. There's a lot of interaction with the team. And then when you go ashore, they host every activity. So whether or not it's a short hike, you'll always be in a small group with one of our guides. The photo on the left, Rob and Aiello hiking up a mountain here, or if it's just a short beach walk to see some penguin colony, you might be with one of our birders, and you'll always be with different guides each day. So I definitely think expedition team is the big difference there. But on the wildlife side, what do you see? Penguins. On this particular trip for Cindy Chambers, a 12-day trip, you're going to see 3 penguin species, Gentoo, chinstrap, and Adelie penguins. You also see fur seals, southern elephant seals, Weddell seals, crab-eater seals, and leopard seals. For the whales, humpback, minke, and orcas. One of my favorite photos here is in this photograph, but it's amazing how many humpback whales you'll see from the Zodiac. I do get questions how safe it is, but we've never had any incidents with that. The humpback whales are always curious, especially when they're bubble feeding. And then if you're an avid birder, I really recommend a trip to Antarctica, especially when you're crossing the Drake Passage. You're out on deck with some of our birders. It is quite a unique experience. So taking a look at our Antarctica typical voyage, this particular example, January 24th to February 5th, 2021. This is Cindy Chambers' Antarctica group that she's going to host on the Silver Wind. We make it quite easy for you to go on an Antarctica trip. So give you a little example here. If you are flying from Houston or other areas of the U.S., we do include free international airfare or reduced business class air to get you to Santiago, Chile. Then from there, Silversea includes a one-night free hotel, and then the following day you'll have a charter flight from Santiago to Ushuaia. So if you see on the map here, it's a round-trip Ushuaia cruise. So it's about 12 days in length. You'll spend about 8 days in the peninsula. And this is a typical Antarctic voyage, about 10 to 12 days in length. It usually takes about a day and a half to cross the Drake Passage. We give ourselves 2 days, but the Silver Wind is quite fast, which we'll talk in a bit. If you have any questions about the Drake Passage, we can review that. What I would like to do, though, is walk through a typical day in the life being on the Silver Wind, and what are the excursions like? What type of wildlife will you see? And a lot of these photos here are from my trip to Antarctica a year and a half ago, as well as some of the photographers on board shared some photos from this past season. I will say one thing, though, with expedition cruising, it's a little different than regular cruising. They have a set schedule for the following day, but if weather changes or if they see humpback whales or there's great conditions ashore to go see a penguin colony, they might change the schedule a bit. So you have to be aware there has to be a little flexibility with that. But for the most part, your first excursion might start at 9 in the morning. You'll board Zodiacs from deck 3. We do have a mud room where you can store the boots. And then from there, you'll board the Zodiacs. It's quite easy to get in and out of a Zodiac. When you go ashore here, you can see here with a couple guides in the Zodiac. And we have, I would say, about 4 guides that will assist guests going ashore. So you'll see here with the gear, guests are wearing their complimentary parkas. You will need to pack your base layer gear. So waterproof pants. I do recommend to rent boots through our gear operator. With that, you'll see guests are swinging their legs around, and then you're in about calf deep of water. But if you do have any leg knit or hip problems, just review that with Cindy, and Cindy and I can work together to see if this trip is right for you. But we have had guests that have just had knee surgery or hip surgery and our expedition team did a great job accommodating them. So all different activity levels that we can accommodate here. So just showing you this photo here, you can see the zodiacs in the background here going ashore. There's probably a couple penguins over there, and then there's another group of guests on the left-hand side. Just a number of penguins you see this particular day, seeing the Gen 2 penguins. Penguin species that you'll see here, Gen 2 penguins, Adelie penguins. Some of my favorites are the chin strap penguins. And then, of course, when you're on a trip in mid-January, you'll get to see the baby penguins. So the season with Antarctica, more snow and more ice, tends to happen end of November into December. So my trip, beginning of December, I didn't get to see baby penguins. I saw all the eggs laying on the rocks, but baby penguins are born end of December. So a perfect time to see the baby penguins. They're just so cute. Taking a look at some of the activities though that we offer, longer hikes here, always led by an expedition leader. Visiting an area here like Danko Island, walking ashore, guests at the top of Nico Harbor. Cindy?
I'm here. Okay.
So sorry about that. Thank you so much. Always sometimes there can be a little glitches here and there, but taking a look at just some of the scenery. One of my favorite ways of exploring, especially with Antarctica, when I mentioned is being ashore, not just on board. So you can see here some of the views of hiking. Now, going back to, pardon me, let's click here. Another hiking photo here, but if you do have concerns of the hiking, I would say on a typical Antarctic trip, 12-day cruise, there might be 3 or 4 days of hiking that is offered. Now with that 3 or 4 days, the landing. So I brought my mom on the trip and she didn't want to go on this hike in this particular photograph. So she just walked to the first penguin colony ashore, and then I joined one of our guides on an hour hike up to the top of the hill here. She waited for me down at the bottom, and then I met her down there. So there's always that choice and flexibility. Not all guests will go on a hike, but this is another photo that I really like to show because I get questions of the camera equipment to bring. And I was just amazed at how often I just ended up using my iPhone for a lot of the photos because it's smaller, and especially if you're walking next to a penguin colony, it's quite easy to bring that out. But you can see there's some guests with large cameras or just using your iPhone. The reason that some of the iPhone photos actually turn out good in Antarctica, you're within a couple feet of the wildlife. It's very different than being on some other trips. But when you're next to, I would say, penguin colonies, Gen 2, chin straps, they just walk ashore. They have, we call it a little penguin highway. If you sit down, they'll come up right next to you. So I wouldn't worry too much about camera equipment unless you're an avid photographer. One of my favorite days for an Antarctica trip was visiting Half Moon Island. And you'll see in this photo here, I was with one of our birders, Will. He's been an avid birder since he was 5 years old. And you can see the guest on the left-hand side with the chin strap penguins, and they have this penguin colony, but you're just walking ashore, and it's quite interesting. They'll walk just right past you. Zodiac cruise, this particular day, Zodiac cruising in Paradise Cove. This bay was named for spectacular scenery with the mountains, glaciers, and icebergs. There's a good chance that day Zodiac cruising, you might see some minke whales. But if you look up on the cliffs, you can see there are some penguins up there. I was really amazed, though, you can see on this particular day, Zodiac cruising, just the scenery and how white Antarctica is and how clear it is. One of my favorite days that I will never forget was visiting Sierra Cove. This particular day, they can almost guarantee seeing humpback whales bubble feeding. So there was probably about 6 Zodiacs out. I was in a Zodiac group right next to this. and we had 5 of us in our Zodiac, and there was 8 humpback whales around us. And these are type of images and experiences you're going to get with humpback whales right next to you. The other thing you can see here, photographing not just with humpback whales and penguins, but the seals, fur seals walking ashore. Hope Bay, you're going to see leopard seals as well. And taking a look here at the tabular icebergs and the color of the ice. These icebergs, it's unbelievable how far they go into the ocean. It's quite interesting though with the ice sheets with Antarctica, 85% of the world's ice resides in Antarctica. 90% of the icebergs are below the surface. So if you just imagine how large this iceberg is, it probably goes another mile down below. But look at these turquoise colors. And another thing that I learned when you first visit Antarctica, you see these arches, and these arches are there because the erosion has carved an icy arch. So the scenery there, you'll go past these arches. You're in the safety. So the expedition team will always make sure that you're not too close to these icebergs and glaciers, but it's great just to go Zodiac cruising. So we do offer those landings each day, but a lot of times just being in the Zodiacs, you'll have a remarkable experience. So that was an example, I would say, maybe of your morning activities. You come back on board midday and you'll have a nice lunch. You can relax in the afternoon. They'll have some lectures. And then usually I would say around 3 p.m., you might go ashore again. So you'll go back to the mudroom. This gives you an example where you can store your boots there. This particular day I went kayaking. So you can see here we do have dry suits. Now with kayaking, this is complimentary, and that's a big selling point for our product. Because there's some other operators that will charge for it. I would say on a typical maybe 12-day Antarctic trip, you'll kayak 2 to 3 times during the voyage. But the scenery there, stunning when you kayak. Paradise Bay, Hooverville, going ashore here, more penguins. Peterman Island with the geology here. More than likely, you'll probably go ashore in Peterman Island with a geologist, and you'll see the shoreline, the granite composition, which is great for the penguins, such as Adelie and Gentoo penguins, to nest. So you'll see that earlier in the season, but when you visit there, you'll see plenty of baby penguins. Another popular area to visit, South Shetland Islands, Whalers Bay, Deception Island here. So you'll walk ashore here. There's a lot of geology and history behind here. So you'll probably walk with one of our geologists ashore here. Well, also, they might offer a polar plunge from this particular area or from the ship. It all depends with the expedition leader. And another area that I always say is a must stop for Antarctica is Port Lockroy. This used to be a British listening station here during World War II, which was used as a research station in the 1950s. And since 1996, it's been used as a museum and gift shop. So it is quite fun if you do want to send a postcard back to your friends and family back home. We do make a stop here, and you could do that. So it is quite unique. I mentioned the polar plunge. I always say pack your bathing suits. Even if you're not sure you want to do this, just bring a bathing suit just in case. Depending on the expedition leader, they might offer the polar plunge from the ship, or they might offer it from Deception Island. It just depends the weather conditions. Another great way to see Antarctica is from the ship itself. One of my favorite days was cruising through Lemire Channel. The scenery is just spectacular. It's like mirror-like waters. The channel is prone to a lot of icebergs. You might see some icebergs that are a mile in length. And with that too, you're going to see a lot of whales and seals that are often spotted along this route. You can see using the bow of the ship, the expedition team, they're in the blue jackets with our guests on board, and they just spotted some whales out on deck. So that's a little overview of the typical like day in the life, what you can expect visiting Antarctica. I hope that got you excited for your trip. I do want to mention a couple things with packing. I know there are some questions of what to pack, but I say think of it like going on a ski trip. So all the base layers that you have, the gloves, you'll need base layer gloves. I recommend with the base layer gloves, you can buy them at REI, where the finger, they have like a little removable area in case you want to take photos on your iPhone. But base layers, heavy ski gloves, heavy wool socks. Rent the boots because the boots are quite heavy. And if you rent the boots, they'll be delivered to your suite. But pack heavy wool socks and always go up a size in boots because of the heavy socks. So something to think of there. We do include a backpack and a water bottle to keep, as well as the parkas to keep. So those 3 items will be in your suite, and if you rent the boots will be in your suite as well. So with that, I do want to turn this back over to Cindy and open it up. I think with her, you might have some questions there, Cindy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. Oh my gosh, I just love and share your passion for adventure, and I wish it was this January as opposed to 2021. So thank you very much for that very informative presentation. I'm marveling at the scenery. It's just unbelievable. So yes, we have a few questions, and I believe you've covered some of them, but I think it's worth repeating. So what about the Drake Passage? How long does it take to traverse, and what about rough weather? That's question number 1.
Great question. We usually give ourselves about 2 days to cross the Drake Passage, and it usually takes about 32 hours. You know, the captain and the expedition leader, they always monitor the sea conditions. And if they do think that it's too rough, they'll delay leaving Ushuaia, which they did on my trip, which made it really comfortable. So instead of leaving that evening at 6 p.m., we left the following morning, and it was fine. I always recommend wear a patch when you're crossing the Drake Passage, just in case. When you're in the peninsula, it's completely calm. You can take off the patch.
Okay, great information. And I imagine on that day you're going to have lectures on board, and it's going to be a typical sea day that we've come to love and know on regular cruises, correct?
Oh, yes. Yes. So that's one thing too with it is nice to have that downtime. The pace of a trip to Antarctica is very nice. So you're going to have a couple, sea days on board. And then once you get to Antarctica, you'll be there for about 8 days, and then you come back through the Drake Passage as well. So it's paced really nice. We will have lectures throughout the day. And also your suite is quite comfortable. There'll be recent released movies. We'll have high tea in the afternoon. They'll play trivia games in the afternoon as well. Cocktail receptions. We have that photo studio on board. And of course, for the ladies, there is a spa and salon on board.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so much fun. So before I go forward with it, we have just a few more questions. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know we committed to 30 minutes, and we're just a few minutes over 30 minutes. So we understand if you have to sign off. So no problem, and we'll get back in touch with you. But if you'd like to stay on, we're going to move forward with the questions. So Rachel, I think you answered this before, but if we could talk about it, the question is, how many landings are you doing daily?
Weather permitting, 2 landings a day. So usually there's one in the morning, and then the ship will move to a different island midday, and then you'll have a second landing in the afternoon. But it all depends with the captain and the expedition leader. If you've had your second landing, you get back to the ship by 6 p.m. And at 9 p.m., if they spot a pod of humpback whales, they might drop the Zodiacs down at 9 p.m. at night. So it just varies with the schedule, but for the most part, 2 landings a day.
Okay, great. Let's see. And again, I think you mentioned this, but if we could review it for the question that popped up, what other activities do we do besides Zodiac?
Great question. So Zodiac cruising, kayaking is included, and then ashore, walking and hiking. So those tend to be the main excursions, but I would say you want to go to Antarctica to get off the ship. So if it's not just walking ashore, but the Zodiac cruising is also great. So those tend to be the most popular: walking, hiking, and Zodiac cruising.
Wonderful. And my favorite, kayaking. I know I did kayaking in Galapagos, and I can't get enough of it. So.
Oh, well, you're going to love it in Antarctica. Can you just imagine with how large these glaciers and icebergs are, Cindy. I mean, you're going to have some stunning photographs to take.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so are there any other questions? Because I think we had some duplicates. So any other questions? Okay, so if you're still with us, I want to once again thank you for participating. We are going to be offering what I like to call as a show special. It's a cruise certificate. If you decide to deposit on this particular adventure in January of 2021, if you deposit your cruise between tonight and November 19th, we're going to be offering another $500 savings per suite. So we'll be following back up with you on that detail. So stay tuned for that. You should see our last slide. And I just want to explain, Rachel is the one in the middle with her arms outstretched. She's our adventurer. And again, thank you for your time tonight. It's really been helpful. The picture to the left, that's Betsy Burks in the middle. She's our Silversea partner that we wouldn't go this way without, and then you'll know me, and then my business partner Linda Triplett on the left, and then the team picture of Beyond Group Travel is on the right, and that's in order: myself, Linda, Sandra, Ariel, and Amanda. So once again, thank you for your time. At the conclusion of this, please email Cindy at beyondgrouptravel.com. You'll see that email address at the bottom of the slide for a special surprise. And we'd love to have your feedback on what you think of this type of presentation and how this worked for your schedule. So once again, thank you. We appreciate your support at Beyond Group Travel. Silversea Cruises, we couldn't do this without you. We appreciate our partnership. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate it. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye.